Hello everyone and welcome to another video. This time we're going to be looking at some old pictures of the flooded villages of Derwent and Ashopton. As a lot of you will know, these were located in the Ladybower Reservoir in the beautiful Derwent Valley. And the reservoir was built between 1935 and 1943 and was reportedly the largest reservoir in Britain at the time. Between them, Ladybower and the neighbouring Derwent and Howden reservoirs, constructed between 1901 and 1916, can hold nearly 46 billion litres when full, which quite obviously at the moment they are not, hence the interest in these villages that have been exposed. Occasionally when water levels fall particularly low, like during the current drought, Ladybower Reservoir gives up the secrets buried in its depth. Two villages were controversially flooded to create a reservoir, with homes, churches and the popular pub, farms and schools all dramatically submerged. The thriving communities living there were displaced and hundreds of graves had to be exhumed and reburied in the nearby village of Bamford. The buildings which were lost included the elegant manor house at Derwent Hall, built in 1672, the pretty old Tobar cottage, which must have been very pretty indeed, Ashopton Inn, and St James and St John's Church, dating from 1757. The remains of those buildings, along with roads and bridges, can sometimes be seen when the water recedes, as is now. This happened to particularly spectacular effect in 1947, just 2 years after the reservoir was filled with water, when the spire of the old church broke the surface in a scene reminiscent of Planet of the Apes. It is a sight we will never see again, sadly. The spire, which had been left as a memorial to lost villages, was now viewed as a hazard and blew the cow up in December that year. One landmark which did survive was the 17th century Packhorse Bridge in Derwent, which was moved stone by stone and rebuilt over the River Derwent at the head of Howden Reservoir. The villages of Derwent and Ashopton were compulsorily bought by Derwent Valley Water Board, despite intense local opposition, and the residents being moved to Bamford. The photos going across your screen now obviously show how the lost villages with their thriving communities looked before the waters came in all those years ago. So let's have a look at them one by one. This first picture here shows the spire of St James's and St John's Church in Derwent, and it emerges from the water of the Ladybower Reservoir in 1947. In this second picture, believe it or not, this is the entire population of Derwent Village in 1905, quite a small little community. This third picture here shows Ashopton Village, including the inn, during the early 1900s. Picture number 4 shows a post office, which is a rare sight even these days because they're shutting all the buggers down. This is in Derwent Village in 1934. This fifth picture here is of the Ashopton Viaduct and Ladybower Reservoir under construction in the early 1940s, with Ashopton Inn and the Sheffield to Glossop Road in the foreground. Now we'll have some clean minds here, please. This is Cock Bridge, pictured during the 1940s, with Bole Hill Quarry, Ashopton, Bamford and the Howden Railway in the background. This picture here shows the ruins of Derwent Village at Ladybower Reservoir, revealed by the drought of 1949. Moving on to the next picture, Derwent Village, shortly before being submerged under Ladybower Reservoir. St James's and St John's Church are visible to the right, with Derwent Post Office and Vicarage on the left. Now picture number 9 shows the pretty gaudy task of the graves that have been removed from the grounds of St James's and St John's C of E Church, Derwent, in 1944. Prior to the construction of Ladybower Reservoir, the remains of 285 people were exhumed and reburied, rather than me. This next picture here shows St James and St John's C of E Church, Derwent, built in 1867, pictured in 1944. This was shortly before it was demolished, with only the spire left standing for the construction of Ladybower Reservoir. Picture number 11 shows Derwent Hall, and this is in the early 1940s, shortly before it was demolished, again for the construction of Ladybower Reservoir. Picture number 12 shows the chapel, the Lake and the private St Henry's Roman Catholic Chapel at Derwent Hall, was demolished in the 1940s, again, have a guess, for the construction of Ladybower Reservoir. Number 13, unlucky for some, it was for this village, is the Packhorse Bridge. Derwent Hall and the Packhorse Bridge over the River Derwent, pictured sometime between 1920 and 1939. This picture here shows the Toll Bar Cottage, Ashopton Village, pictured in August 1932 prior to the construction of, yes you guessed it, Ladybower Reservoir, with the Toll Cottage to the right at the junction of Brown Lane and the Sheffield to Glossop Road. This picture here shows members of the Sheffield and District Motor Club outside Ashopton Inn in 1905 before the construction of a certain reservoir. It makes you wonder whether they got pissed before they drove off. Picture number 16 is obviously the Sheffield to Glossop Road running through Ashopton Village, and is pictured again in the early 1900s with the Toll Bar Cottage, which was shown a couple of pictures back in the foreground. This picture here shows Ashopton Bridge over the River Derwent to the west of the village, pictured in 1895. It looks a very nice scene indeed. This next picture shows Wesleyan and Methodist Church in Ashopton being pulled down in January 1943 to make way for, you guessed it, Ladybower Reservoir. I'm glad it explains that it has been pulled down, as quite obviously it'd be a waste of time of the poor chaps putting tiles on when the damn thing's about to be flooded. This absolutely brilliant picture here is Ashopton Village being demolished in the early 1900s to make way for the Ladybower Reservoir with a fantastic viaduct in the background. The penultimate picture shows Ashopton Village, pictured shortly before it was demolished in the early 1940s. And the last picture shows a bus outside Ashopton Inn in the Lost Peak District village of Ashopton, which was, yes you guessed it, you get the idea by now, flooded to create the Ladybower Reservoir. By then I assumed everybody had pissed off, so nobody needed the bus, who knows. So there we go folks, I hope you enjoyed that look at these two villages that flooded to create, can't remember the word of the reservoir, don't think I mentioned it. Anyway, I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a like, give it a share, consider subscribing to my channel, and remember to click on that notification bell to never miss another fascinating video. Until then, take care of yourselves folks, thank you so much for your support, and ta-ra for now.